wanna live a life.
That guy did. Oh my gosh! Surprise, motherfucker! What? Oh my god, you're fucking crazy!
What is up, you smexy individuals? My name is Birdman778 and welcome to another thematic build video. Today, we're doing the second part of our Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and this is Earthbender Amara. Now, before we get into the video, I want to make sure you guys know I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Birdman778. We stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. We have some other streams sprinkled in between there, so stay up to date on our social media, twitter.com/Birdman778. Instagram.com/BirdmanGram, and obviously here on YouTube, YouTube.com/Birdman778. Make sure you're giving a thumbs up on the video, dropping a little sub on there as well. But let's get right on to it. So like I mentioned, this is going to be our Earthbender Amara. So we're obviously already did our Waterbender Zane, which you can find in our most previous video. But with Amara, this one kind of was a little bit more of a funky one to do. Wasn't really sure what we should do with this build, just purely off the fact that the elements in the game itself tend to cause issues. Fire, shock, corrosive, rad, explosion. None of those meet the idea of earth. But we were able to kind of mess with some of the lore that comes with Avatar: The Last Airbender that more came around in the Legend of Korra series, which is same universe, everything like that, but with magma bending. Magma bending is actually a form of earth bending. If you actually see some of the times in the show that they do it, it tends to be kind of like water bending-ish in a way, just because they're moving fluid rock that's hot. As a weapon, essentially. So we decided to bring that kind of into this build by using fire as an element for us. But let's just run down exactly what equipment you're going to need for this build. First off, we decided to go with a Dastardly Maggie with Face Slam, weapon damage increased by 300%, a Linoge with 300% weapon damage, but mainly just because we got that 120% melee damage. But this one is fire. Redundant Face Puncher with Face Slam, melee damage increased by 200% for a short time. And then Agonizer 1500 action skill and weapon damage increase. We have a Stinger Shield, a Breaker Mod with weapon crit, pistol damage, and corrosive resistance. A Fish Slap Fire with grenade throw, weapon grenade, action skill damage increase. And then a Grave Artifact. Now, reasoning for all these items. First off, we decided to also kind of mix in some kinetic damage in there, just because the thought of just like blunt force kind of sounded like earthbending in a way. But again, we added one weapon that does have fire damage in it to kind of mimic that magma bending in a way. But earthbenders themselves are very much close range to mid-range fighters. So we wanted to stick with a melee style build that can also work at a distance as well. That would be mainly the Maggie and the Face Puncher. The Face Puncher, obviously, the shots that are done by it count as melee, so you kind of get that melee damage that we're going to get from our skill tree, but just in the weapon itself. And the Face Puncher on Amara might be one of the best combos out there in the game right now, so I'd be silly not to add it in here. Now, you might be wondering, Bird, why do you have the Agonizer 1500 on here? Well, we decided to add this in there because it kind of mimicked metal bending in a way. Kirby, Savage Curb Stomp in my stream came up with this idea, and I was like, that's absolutely right. You probably could swap it out for a boring gun, but we decided to go with a launcher instead. You're going to see throughout this video that we were able to get a couple good kills off of it, but at the same time, it won't be your main weapon of use. It's more just pulling it out just for fun, stuff like that. We went with a Stinger Shield just because, again, because it is so strong, you kind of get those AoE effects where it explodes and then just enemies just turn to mist. Now, the one I have is a shock one. I would recommend for the thematic part of this build getting a fire one. I just didn't have a fire one that had the ASE melee damage. So, again, to stick with the theme, I would go with that instead. We went with the Breaker Mod just because a lot of melee damage attributes up on the top with close enough, not close enough, LOL, personal space and jab cross. We went the fish slap, again, a melee style grenade, but you're going to see, I mean, literally we throw it, it touches somebody, they turn to mist, and then the grave artifact, just because of the melee damage, the weapon damage it gives you, and the splash, all that stuff is just super great for this entire class. Now, when it comes to the skill tree, obviously, we are going into Fracture. Fracture essentially sends a line of fists that break up the ground and eventually hit one enemy. I really liked this just because of the splash damage it did, but also for the fact that it did meet that idea of punching the ground, the earth exploding, and all this other stuff. I thought that was really cool. Actually, this idea of Fracture originally came from a friend of mine, Sneaky Turtle. Check him out on Twitch. Super great guy. But one of his builds was using Fracture, and I was always like, man, I really would like to do something based around that. And then Earthbender Amara just made sense using Fracture. Going down the line, we decided to do Root to Rise and Clarity. This was something that was pretty conflicting at the beginning, just because we didn't want the Earthbender to have so much health regen, essentially, but just to make the class itself be able to stay up and keep up in the fight, we decided to add Clarity. We wanted to go with more of a tanky class, but luckily we were able to have things like Helping Hands, making that damage reduction, and also increasing our splash damage with Arm Steel. But like I mentioned before, this is going to be a close to mid-range style build, so obviously as many points as we could get into personal space. Find your center, increasing that melee damage is super great, and then jab cross as well. Blitz, obviously we want that melee override. We want as much just melee as possible, while also being able to take advantage of that mid-range gun damage. You're going to be seeing a lot of that sometimes here in Do Harm. We obviously added to that. We added to Relentless to add on to the action skill cooldown rate, so we constantly have that Fracture able to pop up, and then Ascendant just to get those augment effects up. Now, I added Stillness of Mind. Why did I add this exactly? Because I like the idea of enemies being phase locked if they were damaged by the action skill. This helps us out a lot. Enemies getting stuck on a spot real quick. We can run up, punch them real quick. Again, a lot of times in Avatar: The Last Airbender, enemies are encapsulated in rock, something like that, so Earthbenders are able to walk up. They have that advantage over pretty much all the other element types. Can't really do that with air. You can kind of do that with fire, but I mean, it's definitely beatable by most of the other elements. And then water is one that you could mess with just because it can turn to ice. But earth is so significant in the show. You see multiple times enemies just encapsulated in rock and just like held prisoner essentially. So the Stillness of Mind kind of met that thematic part of the build. And going into the red tree, this one was kind of complicated just because I didn't want to do a whole lot of multi-element status effects, stuff like that. Again, we wanted this to be just more of a more melee to mid-range fight with kinetic weapons. So we essentially just filled in the spots that we needed to do just to get down to sustainment. So we're getting some of that life steal off of elemental damage. And essentially Illuminated Fist, another one that we wanted to get in there. But everything else is really more just to fill in spots than anything else. In regards to our Mayhem modifiers, obviously these are things that you can always change, but me personally, to meet the thematic part of this build, I decided to go with Slayer, Healy Avenger, Pool Party, and Postmortem. Now, why these specifically? Slayer, I like the idea of the constant punching, incentivizing punching, doing those melee effects, and also helps out keep your health up as much as humanly possible. Healy Avenger, same exact thing. You shoot the heart, drops health down for you. Pool Party is one that you can kind of swap in and out, obviously, and it comes the same with Postmortem. I just noticed that Postmortem was just an easy one. You killed death real fast with a face puncher. GG, well played. But Pool Party can be one that can be a little tricky at times, as you can see throughout the rest of this playthrough. So guys, going throughout this video, I really did enjoy this. This was obviously one that I was having a whole lot of trouble with, just essentially figuring out what exactly do we need to add to this build to make it viable. And again, Earth not being an element at all, essentially in the Borderlands verse, having to mess around with stuff was a challenge. But I think we did really well meeting that thematic part of the build. Guys, be ready for the Firebender modes that should be coming out sometime this week. We'll be working on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/perman778 on Wednesday, the 12th. To just get it started. We're excited. I'm excited. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Again, drop a sub if you want. Leave a thumbs up. Let me know down below if you were part of the Avatar: Last Airbender universe, what would be your preferred element? Me personally, I like air or water. Those are my two. So, guys, thank you so much again. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, whatever it may be, and stay smexy. All right, Kurzo, I'm going to make a separate video of the recordings during my lunch break. Just the fighting stuff, the B-roll. Need anything from me? Let me know.